There was a time when I believed modelling a feminine body was much more challenging, requiring many more control lines. But this tutorial shows how we can create a curvy, eye-catching body while keeping it fun and simple. By starting with a basic body, we only need to insert 3 control rings into the torso and 4 into the legs. It doesn't matter how advanced the face is, it doesn't even need a face. As long as the torso and legs are structured the same, with 12 control staves in the torso and 6 in the arms and legs, we're ready to enjoy the art of modelling a beautiful feminine figure. This is the ring we'll use to define the waist. For the style I'm aiming for, I want to raise it a little, so that it's nearly midway in the torso. Before scaling in the waist too much, we should insert a ring below and above to help form the pelvis and thorax. Drag these points down to help form the lower tummy, and these points to help form the bottom. Before dragging any points out of the thighs to help form the hourglass shape, insert 2 rings into the thigh. These rings need to be squashed to make the knees thinner, and I want these 3 rings squashed closer to each other. Insert a ring here to widen the shins and calves at this point. In forming the shins and calves, we want this ring dragged back, and to improve the knee shape, we want the lowest knee ring dragged back a little too. To give us more control over the area between the neck and the shoulders, while keeping to only 12 control staves in the torso, insert a ring below the neck's base ring. I'm just colouring these patches back to skin colour only to make it look nice. What I'm doing here has no bearing on the shape. Now let's focus on the shape of the back from a side view. Because our arms can get in the way for this, let's hide the arms. This can be done by first clicking the bunny to show all the cages and then selecting points in the arms, followed by clicking the brown hat to hide the cages. With all the cages in the arms hidden, we can now select the remaining cages and then click the piggy to hide the arms. The lower pelvis and thighs need to be dragged back a little, and the upper rings in the thighs need some stretching to make them wider. I'm squashing these rings to make for a more curvy, slender back, and squashing in only half of this ring with a pivot point positioned in the centre before squashing the selected points. The bust is formed by dragging the front points in this ring. Since we don't have many points to work with in this minimalist structure, I'm keeping the bust subtle. This point is dragged out the most, while this point is dragged less, but plays a role in forming the side of the bust. I'm scaling in the neck rings to give a more slender neck. Okay, let's click the piggy to show the arms back to help us get an overall view of how our character looks. I want all of the arm control points selected and pulled out a little to widen the shoulders, and dragged back a little too. I want the arms thinner by scaling in the arm rings, and I want the arms shorter. This can be easier to do by rotating the view first by 45 degrees by clicking this button. Now let's make the feet more stylish by shaping them for high-heeled shoes. We only need 1 ring inserted for this, which will be the final ring inserted for this tutorial. Okay, we have 3 rings for the toe section. Let's drag them down and back a little. Now select the ring between the toes and heel and drag and orient it like so. Drag the toes down a little more and refine. From here on, it's mostly a matter of viewing our character from different orientations and refining it. Since much of this task isn't mentally taxing, we can enjoy most of this time while listening to music, something positive being discussed, or ASMR. However, don't expect to complete it in one go. Refining it is an ongoing process. Taking breaks and revisiting the work later will offer fresh perspectives on what to adjust. Additionally, reviewing it in a quiet, distraction-free environment can help us fully absorb and evaluate its shape. I'm quite happy with this, but here's an improved version I prepared earlier that's had more time to be refined without inserting any more control lines. The lower part of the face has been made shorter and the cheeks puff out more, giving it a more cute, feminine look. With a front view, this outer curve that runs along the pelvis and thigh plays a major role in defining the overall shape of our figure. If we try to have too much of the curve happen in the pelvis, this can leave us with too little area left to curve the thighs, which can leave our character looking skeleton-like rather than curvy. If on the other hand, too much of the curve is taking place in the thighs, this can give the appearance of a man with bulging muscular thighs. I discovered a helpful rule to avoid these extremes. Draw a horizontal line that aligns with the base of the crotch. This line should intersect with the outermost point of the curve, where the tangent is perfectly vertical. While this rule has worked for me, I suspect the ideal point for the horizontal line should be a little lower. But whatever the case, feel free to experiment to find what works best for the style of the character. If when twirling the model, you see an angle like this develop here instead of a smooth, continuous curve like this, it's likely due to the bottom sticking too far out near the sides of the body. To fix this for this view orientation, try dragging these points from this view orientation. Avoid dragging these points in as much, as this is unnecessary and would only accomplish a flat bottom. Before we can animate our character again, we must insert an extra bone into the spine and rename some of the bones accordingly, including the new one. The position of the bone's pivot points must be adjusted to accommodate the changes made to the control cage. I'm hiding the arms and hair using the piggy to make it easier to work on the spine from a side view. Since the piggy doesn't hide the arm bones, to avoid confusion when dragging, first select the intended bone from an easier view before dragging it from a side view. Reapplying ownership is much the same as before, except because there's now more control points near the hip's pivot point, we need to insert a new tab set to 0.5 for the hip. This allows us to apply ownership to points near the hip's pivot point, set to rotate half as much. Because the toes now go through the floor, I'm adjusting the default position of the character, including the skeleton, using the freeze feature.